Today I'm pulling apart the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This book is written by Stephen Covey and has gone on to sell more than 40 million copies. This, by far, is one of the greatest books on personal development ever written. And look, what I absolutely love doing is I love getting a book with a pen and a highlighter and marking the most important passages, the parts within the book that add the biggest value. So we're going to get straight into the beginning of the book, and he talks about paradigms and principles. So each of us tends to think we see things as they are, that we are objective, but this is not the case. We see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we're conditioned to see it. When we open our mouths to describe what we see, we in effect describe ourselves, our perceptions, our paradigms. The more aware we are of our basic paradigms, maps or assumptions, and the extent to which we have been influenced by our experience, the more we can take responsibility for those paradigms, examine them, test them against reality, listen to others, and to be open to their perceptions, thereby getting a larger picture and far more objective view. So essentially, he lays the foundation with your paradigm. Your paradigm is essentially the model that makes you. It's your character, it's who you are at a fundamental level. And essentially he's saying that the more that we understand our paradigm and the more self-aware that we are, the more ability we have to take responsibility of ourselves and then change our paradigm, thereby changing our lives. That's what he's trying to say. He goes on to talk about the power of the paradigm shift. The term paradigm shift was introduced by Thomas Kuhn in his highly influential landmark book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Kuhn shows how almost every significant breakthrough in the field of scientific endeavor is first a break with tradition, with old ways of thinking, with old paradigms. So essentially what he's saying here is the power of a paradigm shift is so important to creating the life that you want. And what we need to do in order to create a paradigm shift is get rid of the old you, traditional thinking, the way you used to think, your old paradigms. We need to essentially get rid of the old to be able to create that paradigm shift and begin new. And what he talks about in paradigm shifting is we can change our paradigm. We can do it by changing again, slowly over time, we can create subtle or minor improvements by changing our attitudes and behaviors. But if we really want to make a dramatic shift in our lives, what we really need to focus on changing is the fundamental, the root cause of who we are, which is our paradigm. So if you want to make minor changes, focus on your attitudes and your behaviors. If you want to make a dramatic change in your life, you need to focus on your paradigm, changing that paradigm. And he goes on to say that a paradigm shift can happen, obviously, slowly, but also dramatically. And a lot of the time, people's paradigms will change when they have a major life event. That could be getting married, becoming a husband or wife, having a child, starting a new job, maybe getting terminated from an old job. And these can automatically, instantaneously cause people to change who they are and change their paradigms. And changing your paradigm is one of the most important things to be highly effective, is what he's saying. Principles and values. So principles are like lighthouses. They are the natural laws that cannot be broken. Principles are not values. A gang of thieves can share values, but they are in violation of the fundamental principles we're talking about. Principles are the territory, values are the maps. When we value correct principles, we have truth and knowledge of things as they are. Principles are guidelines for human conduct that are proven to have enduring, permanent value. They're fundamental, they're essentially unarguable because they're self-evident. So what does this mean? So we've got values. So values for me, personal development, personal growth, wealth, family, physical health, all these types of things are values. And people can share the same values, but principles are so important to human effectiveness because these are natural laws that cannot be broken. So what are principles? If you want to become wealthy, let's say you want to become rich, that might be a value, wealth. But if we want to become rich, we need to base our paradigm based upon a certain set of principles, steps A through to Z, which will take us to becoming rich. Really, really important. I absolutely love this. Then he goes on to talk about habits. Our character basically is a composite of our habits. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny, the maxim goes. So what he's saying here, that your habits are so important. Think about that. You have a thought, and by producing thoughts, naturally they create actions. And then I believe it's something like 60 days or 90 days. Once you take that action consistently over time, it creates a habit. Once that habit is formed long term, that creates your character. And your character, essentially we could say, is your paradigm, it's your mental model construct, and that creates your destiny. So to be effective, we need to have the right habits based upon the right principles, which change our paradigm, which make us effective, which is really, really powerful stuff. So he goes on to talk about the maturity continuum. So as we become effective, we have a maturity continuum, and we want to get from the lowest part to the highest part. And this begins with dependence. So the first part of the maturity continuum is dependence. And this is when we depend upon other people. So this could be like our mother, our father, our siblings. Essentially from a young age, we're very dependent on the people around us, our family, right? But then we transition to becoming independent. Let's say around 13 or 14 years old, he goes on to say that we become independent. I get a job, I can take care of myself, I look after myself. But in order to take things to the greatest level, in order to be the most effective that you possibly can be, we need to become interdependent. He goes on to say that all of nature, all of society is interdependent. We all depend upon each other. And if you really want to become effective, you need to go on the maturity continuum from dependent, independent to interdependent. The greatest businesses in the world, they don't get to where they are with one person. They have a team around, they have people, which means they're interdependent. That takes them to the next level. This is really, really cool stuff here. He goes on to talk about the PC balance. He says that true effectiveness lies at the balance of the PC balance. And the best way that he explains this PC balance is through one of Aesop's fables. And I'm going to read that to you because I think it's very, very powerful. This fable is a story of a poor farmer who one day discovers in the nest of his pet goose a glittering golden egg. At first, he thinks it must be some kind of trick. But as he starts to throw the egg aside, he has second thoughts and takes it in to be appraised instead. The egg is pure gold. The farmer can't believe his good fortune. He becomes even more incredulous the following day when the experience is repeated. Day after day, he awakes to the rush and find nest and find another golden egg. He becomes fabulously wealthy. It seems all too good to be true. But with his increasing wealth comes greed and impatience. Unable to wait day after day for the golden eggs, the farmer decides he'll kill the goose and get them all at once. But when he opens the goose, he finds it empty. There are no golden eggs, and now there is no way to get any more. The farmer has destroyed the goose that produced them. I suggest that within this fable is a natural law, a principle, the basic definition of effectiveness. Most people see effectiveness from the golden egg paradigm. The more you produce, the more you do, the more effective you are. But as the story shows, true effectiveness is a function of two things: what is produced, the golden eggs, and the producing asset or capacity to produce, the goose. Effectiveness lies in balance, what I call the PC balance. P stands for production of the desired result, the golden eggs. PC stands for production capability, the ability or asset that produces the golden eggs, right? This is really, really important. And why I think this is super, super important, because as entrepreneurs, what happens, why I'm an entrepreneur, I love the hustle. We work 12, 14, 18 hours a day. We hustle, we hustle, we hustle. But then what ends up happening to a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, let's say 80% of people, what happens to them? They burn themselves out and then they can't work. But the PC balance is you need to protect the goose, the human that produces a desired result. If you want to make money, yeah, you can do it. You can grind, you can grind, you can grind until you burn yourself out, and then you're not taking care of that asset. So this is what he's saying. True effectiveness lies in taking care of yourself to get the desired result that you want. Really, really important. I absolutely love this section. So now we're moving on to private victory. We first have private victory, then we have public victory. And the first habit is be proactive. As you read this book, try to stand apart from yourself. Try to project your consciousness upward into a corner of the room and see yourself. In your mind's eye reading, can you look at yourself almost as though you were someone else? Now try something else. Think about the mood you are now in. Can you identify it? What are you feeling? How would you describe your present mental state? Now think for a minute about how your mind is working. Is it quick or alert? Do you sense that you are torn between doing this mental exercise and evaluating the point trying to be made out of it? Your ability to do what you just did is uniquely human. Animals do not possess this ability. We call it self-awareness, or the ability to think about our very own thought process. This is the reason why man has dominion over all things in the world and why he can make significant advances from generation to generation. Between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. In addition to self-awareness, we have imagination, the ability to create in our minds beyond our present reality. And we have independent will, the ability to act based upon our self-awareness, free from all other influences. So I'll give you a quick example. Animals. An animal is stimulus and response, stimulus and response, stimulus and response. They literally react. But what he's saying is, our ability to project our consciousness out and think about our own thoughts makes us uniquely human. It makes us self-aware, which means we have the ability between the stimulus and the response to choose, which is very, very powerful, because then we can use our imagination and our will to pretty much change the outcome or change the direction of our lives. What he goes on to say is we take ownership. Once we realize that we can choose between stimulus and response, our action or the way that we act in this moment, that means we can take responsibility of our own lives, which I really love it. So reactive people are often affected by their physical environment. If the weather is good, they feel good. If it isn't, it affects their mental attitude and their performance. Proactive people carry their own weather with them. See, I absolutely love this, because if you think about a reactive person or proactive person, a reactive person, someone cuts them off in traffic and they're pissed off, frustrated, and it ruins the course of their day. Or they come into work or they start the day and someone says their hair doesn't look nice, and then all of a sudden it ruins their day, right? So their weather, their own weather, is governed by other people. They're controlled from the outside. But the proactive person recognizes their stimulus and response, and they choose their thoughts and their actions between the stimulus and response. So they take ownership of their weather and they carry their weather with them. This is so powerful, this stuff here. This is a great section. He talks about reactive language and proactive language. Reactive language, there's nothing I can do. Proactive language, let's look at our alternatives. That's just the way I am. Reactive language. Proactive languages, I can choose a different approach. A serious problem with the reactive language is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is really important to pay attention to the language that you're using, because your language dictates your actions and your results in life. So paying attention to, are you using reactive language or are you using proactive language? And then he goes on to talk about the circle of concern or the circle of influence. Where is your focus? So if your focus is on the circle of concern, what that means is your focus is entirely upon the things that you cannot control. Other people, the way they talk to you, the way they act. If you're focusing on the circle of concern, that expands and your circle of influence shrinks. Whereas the proactive people focus on the circle of influence. They focus on the things they can control. And this is very similar to Stoic philosophy. This dates back thousands of years. The Stoics used to focus on what they can control. And if you focus on the things that you control, you're proactive and you're responsible for your own life. You can take charge. And then what happens is your influence grows. Your circle of influence grows, and then your circle of concern shrinks. Very powerful stuff here. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Clear your mind of everything except what you'll read and what I'll invite you to do. Don't worry about your schedule, your business, your family, or your friends. Just focus on me and the open mind. In your mind's eye, see yourself going to a funeral of a loved one. Picture yourself driving to the funeral parlor or chapel, parking the car and getting out. As you walk inside the building, you notice flowers, the soft organ music, you see the folks of friends and family you pass along the way. You see the shared sorrow of losing, the joy of having known that radiates from the hearts of the people there. As you walk down to the front of the room and look inside the casket, you suddenly come to face with yourself. This is your funeral 3 years from today. All these people have come to honor you, to express feelings of love and appreciation for your life. As you take a seat and wait for the service to begin, you look at the program in your hand. There are to be 4 speakers. The first is from your family, immediate and also extended, children, brothers, sisters, nephews, nieces, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents who have come from all over the country to attend. The second speaker is one of your friends, someone who can give a sense of what you were as a person. The third speaker is from your work or profession. The fourth is from your church or some community organization where you've been involved in the service. Now think deeply. What would you like each of these speakers to say about you and your life? What kind of husband, wife, or father or mother would you like their words to reflect? What kind of son, daughter, or cousin? What kind of friend? What kind of working associate? What character would you like them to have seen in you? What contributions, what achievements would you want them to remember? Look carefully at the people around you. What difference would you like to have made in their lives? I absolutely love this. So he's talking about thinking about your deathbed. What would you want to be happening at your deathbed? Because the most fundamental application of begin with the end in mind is to begin today with the image, picture, or paradigm of the end of your life as your frame of reference or criterion by which everything else is examined. Each part of your life today, today's behavior, tomorrow's behavior, the next week's behavior, next month's behavior can be examined in the context of the whole of what really matters to you most. By keeping that end clearly in mind, you can make certain that whatever you do on any particular day does not violate the criteria you have defined as supremely important, and that each day of your life contributes to a meaningful way to the vision you have of your life as a whole. To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, and so that the steps you are taking are always in the right direction. He's talking about your vision. What is the vision for your life? Because if you don't have a vision for your life, you're going to end up nowhere. You're going to be living by other people's priorities, not your own. What he's saying is by beginning with the end in mind, every day you can take actions that align with your mission, with your values for your life. Beginning with the end in mind, right? It's so important. The most effective way I know to begin with the end in mind is to develop a personal mission statement or philosophy or creed. It focuses on what you want to be, character, and to do, contributions and achievements, and on the values or principles upon which being and doing are based. So developing a personal mission statement that you can look at every day, every week, every month guides you to make sure that every yes you're saying is aligning with your values, and you're saying no to things that aren't aligning with your principles and your values and things that you're trying to accomplish in your life. And then once you develop a mission statement, you've begun with the end in mind, he talks about affirmations, the power of affirmations. A good affirmation has 5 basic ingredients. It's personal, it's positive, it's present tense, it's visual, and it's emotional. So I might write something like this. It's deeply satisfying, emotional, that I, personal, respond, present tense, with wisdom, love, firmness, and self-control. Positive, when my children misbehave. Then I can visualize it. I can spend a few minutes each day and totally relax my mind and body. And what this enables us to do is proactively re-script our lives. I am strong, I am wise, I can, I'm the best, I'm great, I'm a warrior. By you creating affirmations that are powerful, you can start to re-script your programming. Habit 3, put first things first. In the beginning of this habit, he talks about one quote, and I love this quote. Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least. And this was written by, or this quote was from Goethe. We must always be prioritizing and ruthlessly executing on things that matter most. This is so important. And what he's saying is that effectiveness is making sure that we're working on the right things at the right time. So he's got this thing called the time management matrix. Urgent is in quadrant 1 and important. So important and urgent are in quadrant 1. So the activities are crisis, pressing problems, deadline-driven projects. Then you've got quadrant 2, which is important but not urgent. So activities, prevention, PC activities, relationship building, recognizing new opportunities, planning, recreation. Then you've got not important and urgent. So then you've got interruptions, some calls, some mail, some reports, some meetings, proximate, pressing matters, popular activities. Then you've got quadrant 4, not important and not urgent. So trivia, busy work, some mail, some phone calls, time wasted, pleasant activities. And the truly effective people put first things first. They are focusing on things that are going to move the needle the most, right? The not important, urgent, and not important, not urgent activities are literally draining you of effectiveness. They are killing you. But so often we love the dopamine of doing urgent things. It gives us an immediate high. We think we're busy, but we're actually not. What he goes on to say is we want to be spending the majority of our time in quadrant 2. So quadrant 2 is where you want to be spending the majority of your time, and that is in the important section and not urgent. After that, we want to be spending time in the important and urgent. And I want you to think about the Pareto principle here. This is very important. Let's say you probably want to focus on 80% of your time spent in the important, not urgent things, and then 20% of your time in the important but urgent things. And by doing this, you're making sure that you're being truly effective. And how do you do this? So the way that you do this, he goes on to talk about essentially every Sunday, you allocate some time. And they recommend about 30 minutes every Sunday, and you allocate this time to start to schedule the things that are important into your calendar. Again, we schedule the things that are important but not urgent. So we block out our week based upon different areas or different roles that we're playing in our life, whether that be mother, father, whether that be manager, whether that be employee. We're literally blocking out the important and not urgent things throughout the course of the week first. We're putting our most important, what he says is, rocks in first. And then from there, we allow some time to deal with the important but urgent things. And he said the greatest return on investment that you're gonna get is spending time in quadrant number 2. So important and not urgent. But this is where most people struggle because they need to block out time and do the deep work. So I absolutely love this quadrant, and this is where I spend, honestly, most of our mornings in this quadrant, and it's essentially what makes me so effective. And then he moves on to public victory, and he begins with the emotional bank account. What he says, if I make deposits into an emotional bank account with you through courtesy, kindness, honesty, and keeping my commitments to you, I build up reserve. Your trust towards me becomes high, and I can call upon that trust many times if I need to. I can even make mistakes, and that trust level, that emotional reserve, will compensate for it. So what he's saying here is we need to develop an emotional bank account with the people around us. And by developing an emotional bank account with the people around us, we can call upon that trust from them to help us out when we need it, which is really, really important. Now, habit 4, think win-win. Win-win is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interaction. Win-win means that agreements or solutions are mutually beneficial, mutually satisfying. With win-win solution, all parties feel good about the decision and feel committed to the action plan. Win-win sees life as cooperative, not a competitive arena. Win-win is based on the paradigm that there is plenty for everyone, that one person's success is not achieved at the expense or exclusion of the success of others. I love that. One of my most favorite statements here is, win-win is based on the paradigm that there is plenty for everyone. The best way to explain this is fair exchange. What we're looking for is both parties win. So when you make that sale to the customer, let's say you're a salesman, that customer needs to win. And how do they win? By the value that you provide. And what I love about this is, based upon the paradigm, is that we believe that there's plenty for everyone. And what's so powerful about this is we're not coming from a lack mindset. By thinking win-win, we think there's plenty to go around from everyone. And that is lodged deep within our paradigm. If your paradigm believes in lack, believes in competition, what that means is naturally you're not going to succeed to the greatest heights that you possibly can. And to be effective, highly effective, we need to understand that everything's about win-win by having fair exchange. By having fair exchange and thinking win-win, deep down inside you believe there's plenty of everyone, which means you're going to take far more opportunities and you're going to be far more successful in life. Habit 5, seek first to understand and then to be understood. So again, with public victory, one of the most important things is communication. If we cannot communicate, how can we work with other people? We can't. And essentially, seek first to understand, then to be understood is essentially saying that we need to learn to communicate with others. And we do this, how do we do this? We do this by empathetic listening. So let's pull this apart. When I say empathetic listening, I mean listening with the intent to understand. I mean first seeking to understand, to really understand. It's an entirely different paradigm. Empathic from empathy, listening gets inside another person's frame of reference. You look through it, you see the world the way they see through their world, you understand their paradigm, you understand the way they feel. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is a form of agreement, a form of judgment, and it is sometimes a more appropriate emotional response. But often people feed on sympathy. It makes them dependent. The essence of empathetic listening is not that you agree with someone, it's that you fully, deeply understand that person emotionally as well as intellectually. When we really deeply understand each other, we open the door to creative solutions and third alternatives. Our differences are no longer stumbling blocks to communication and progress. Instead, they become stepping stones to synergy. I love this. I absolutely love this. So by us getting inside another person, we can work with them. I think the greatest leaders in the world are the ones that are the best listeners. Think about that. The greatest leaders in the world, the most influential people in the world are the ones that are the best listeners. And by you being able to have empathetic listening, to be able to listen to another person's frame of reference, you can see from where they're coming from and you can communicate to them through their frame of reference. And that creates the greatest level of influence because then you can work together. And when you work together, you create synergy. Habit 6, synergize. So what is synergy? Simply defined, it means that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It means that the relationship the parts have to each other is part in and of itself. It's not only a part, but the most catalytic the most empowering, the most unifying, and most exciting part. Synergy is everywhere in nature. If you plant two plants close together, the roots commingle and improve the quality of the soil so that both plants will grow better than if they were separated. If you put two pieces of wood together, they will hold much more than the total weight held by each separately. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 = 3 or more. Synergy. This is what I love, and this is habit 6, synergy. Right, think about it. You're thinking win-win. You're thinking about fair exchange. You're thinking about abundance. There's plenty to go around from everywhere, right? Then you're seeking to first to understand, to learn to communicate with the other person so you get inside their frame of reference, to understand their paradigm. Then, once you do that, you communicate with this individual, and then what happens is we create synergy. 1 + 1 = 3. And this is really what interdependence is about. It's about working with other people. And the more interdependent you are with other people, the more effective you are going to be. If you think about the greatest corporations that have ever existed in the world, they were not built by one individual. They were built by a collective team of people. But then also they had consumers who would purchase that product. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3, it equals more. Well, actually it doesn't equal 2, it equals way, way more. So synergy is what we're trying to get to in life. We're recognizing that together, collectively, we can do so much more than we can do by ourselves. It's focusing on what we can accomplish, not what I can accomplish. It's very, very powerful. And when you do this, this is when you become truly effective. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Principles of balanced self-renewal. This is one of my favorite principles. Habit 7 is personal PC. It's preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. It's renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social and emotional. So in the physical area, we have exercise, nutrition, stress management. Mental, we've got reading, visualizing, planning, writing. Spiritual, value clarification and commitment, study and meditation. Then social and emotional, then we've got service, empathy, synergy, intrinsic security, right? Listen up here. This is the single most powerful investment we can ever make in life. Investment in ourselves, in the only instrument we have with which to deal with life and to contribute. We are the instruments of our own performance, and to be effective, we need to recognize the importance of taking time regularly to sharpen the saw in all 4 ways. This is where the heart of effectiveness lies, because by taking care of the goose that lays the golden egg, you're the goose that produces the income, you can become truly effective. And how do you do this? You do this by nourishing those areas of life. And what he goes on to say is allocating time every day to be nourishing that, because that sets you up for success. I do it every morning. The hour of power. Say I wake up, I meditate, I work out, I read, I study, I visualize my dreams. By doing this every day, that gives you the fuel, that gives you the strength to go and win the day. Now, within this section, he talks about the upward spiral, right? Renewal is the principle and the process that empowers us to move on an upward spiral of growth, change, of continuous improvement. Moving along the upward spiral requires us to learn, commit, and do on increasingly higher planes. We deceive ourselves if we think that any one of these is sufficient. To keep progressing, we must learn, commit, and do. Learn, commit, and do. Learn, commit, and do again. Again, there are different planes that we operate on. And in order for us to expand ourselves, we sharpen our saw, but we're always working on this spiral upwards and upwards and upwards. So by focusing on all these 7 habits, by renewing yourself, by sharpening your saw, by learning, committing, and doing, forever you're going to be rising above this spiral upwards, which is going to make you become the best you possibly can be. Now, I love this. This is a personal note. To the degree to which we align ourselves with correct principles, divine endowments will be released within our nature in enabling us to fulfill the measure of our creation. In the words of Teilhard de Chardin, I'm not too sure how to pronounce that, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. I love this. To the degree that you have your vision, to the degree that you have your vision, you begin with the end in mind, to the degree that you work upon the principles in changing your paradigm, is going to determine how much creative energy and juice you get to fulfill your prophecy, to create your future. And I love this. When we pass away, we return to from where we came. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. One day you're going to leave this world. And when you leave this world, you're going to return from where you came from. A speck of dust, a speck of light, whatever it may be. I absolutely love that. Guys, that was the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Let me know down below what your favorite habit was. If you got value, smash like, hit subscribe. I'm Simon Mucha, and I'll see you again next week.